Howdy folks, Shell Presto here, awesome artist, remarkable writer, and undaunted luminary of her time. I'm still doing a bit of Inktober prep work. I'm trying to get not the pencils, but just the roughest figure set in for one of my Inktober pieces so that when Inktober comes around, I'm ready to detail and start inking. As most of you who watch my channel know, I usually pencil and ink simultaneously. And if you don't know what that means, you'll see in Inktober. But, so I want to get some roughs out. So if you watched my last video, you saw that I was practicing drawing prone poses, because I need to do that for this upcoming drawing. We're going to be having Bruce Carter, before he becomes the Fightin' Yank, trapped under some rubble. And so obviously you practice what you're not particularly good at drawing, and I haven't had many opportunities to draw people lying prone. So I just went through some comics and I looked at some different poses, and I'm not looking to copy these poses exactly, I'm just trying to get the lay of things. So I did a whole bunch of different ones, and at the end of the day I think what's gonna work is something like this. But the other thing is, it's very tempting, especially when you're a new artist, to try to make your illustration fit something, like fit a pose you already see or already have, as opposed to making your drawing different to fit the scene. So, you know, this is a good laying prone pose, and I kind of like the angle and everything here, but this guy in the comic, this is actually based from an issue of Captain Atom, and it's Pat Broderick artwork. This is from an issue of Justice League Europe, and it's based off of Bart Sears artwork. So the problem here is, in the context of this pose, Captain Atom is just injured and he's laying as comfortably as you can lay on the ground. Whereas, you know, the person I'm going to be drawing shouldn't be in a comfortable pose. He has part of a building having fallen on him. Now you're gonna have rubble on him, so you're not gonna see all of his limbs, but we want to go for like a level of discomfort. So we're gonna try to do something like maybe an arm like this, or maybe something trapped like this. We're gonna see. I'm just sketching in this phase. So I'm already trying to work it out a little bit here. This won't be the finished drawing, and I'm still working on sketchbook paper here. But I'm just trying to sort of get the lay of it. So I don't often talk about processes, but I guess I will talk about what I'm trying to do here. Because since when I'm trying to flesh something out, I can generally talk about something else, but here I'm trying to come up with a whole composition, so I'm trying to also figure out how I can have Rebel on this guy. Because like I want both of his arms to be pinned, but obviously if these beams are crossing, then one of them is going to be higher up than the other, so then you have to worry about angles with that. Oh, actually, I could probably, if I go up and over like this, then I could very easily do something like that. I'll have some other junk over here. Something like that would probably work out really well. Okay. Next, what I do, this is my thumbnails book. And this is just a cheap $5, got it at Michael's book. And occasionally I'll take it places and like I'll end up sketching something. This is quite old now. But lately I've just been using it to put all my thumbnails in. And then I have little tiny, is this one of my templates? I think this is one of my templates, but I don't know for what. I think this is a Bexham's illustration template. Yes, it is. So I have little pieces of paper cut and at the reduced sizes of what my finished illustrations are going to be. Oh, my son drew that. He's a budding artist as well. And then I just have empty boxes in here so that when I need to work on things, they're here to work on, which is great. And I know I'm working at the right size. Because your thumbnail doesn't help you out much if it's not, your thumbnail doesn't help you out much if it's not the size you need it to be, because then you could like plan out a drawing and then try to blow it up and then be like, oh, the elements don't fit on the page where I wanted them. This particular image is going to be tough because I want it to pull double duty, so I've got lines here. I don't know what line I want it to be on. Well, we'll find out in a minute. I usually plot out my drawings by rule of thirds. And rule of thirds is just you mark off where you divide your drawing into thirds like a tic-tac-toe board, and then usually you want to put one of your focal points on one of these inside corners. There's a whole reason, and you know, there's a science to how the eye works and what people find interesting, and blocking and all that jazz, but you're better off looking that up on the internet than trying to get a full explanation of it for me. All I know is it helps me make stuff look interesting, so. We'll do a bent wrist thing here. I think that'll be interesting. I want this guy to look uncomfortable. So we could probably arch the back up like he's arch the back up a little instead of down, like he's didn't exactly land comfortably either. I think that should make it look. Now there's going to be two important elements in this drawing. And I think I actually made them too big for it in this. Alright, so we like the composition but not the size right now. I want the arm further up than that. An important part of this is that he's going to have a cloak on him too. Said before, Fighting Yank is a public domain. A 1940s comic book character who has fallen into the public domain. He's going to get the Martian War treatment in Ascension Epoch. Alright. He's going to be looking this way, because the other important element in this drawing is going to be the ghosts of his ancestors. Well, his ancestor and some others to boot. Alright, I think I'm going to raise them for the final one. I think that will work nicely. Okay. And I keep my thumbnails really, really simple and blocky. Okay, I don't really go into detail on them. Sometimes I get myself in a bit of trouble because I feel like I should have practiced some of them more, especially when it comes to expressions, but cross that bridge when we get to it. Alright, while I'm drawing, I may as well get back to some FAQs. So, I'm sure someone thinks that me keeping a book on this side is solely for advertising purposes, and that's actually not entirely true. I have an actual purpose for keeping one on this side, and that's because if my hand is hanging off and like on the table, it can be really hard to draw stuff over on this side of the paper and get leverage. If I stack my books in a certain way over here, some of them are perfect. Like this is my Canson XL mixed media tablet, and it is exactly the height of the Dismal Tide. So I can rest my hand here, and then it's easier to draw over on this side of the page because my hand isn't on a different level. So even if you don't read, if you use the Canson XL multimedia tablets, the blue ones, you may have a reason to still buy my books. That one is totally just over there, so people can see the cover though. There's no practical reason for that. Alright, what was I doing here? I live in America, but I find it easier to measure in centimeters, so here we are. I'll put it along here. It's 24. I'm not actually marking this out. 16. I'm not actually marking this out for the purpose of figuring out how big this drawing needs to be. I'm just marking it out for that rule of thirds reason. Alright, I also need a number divisible by 3. This is pretty close to 18. So 18 divided by 3 is 6, a little less than 6, a little less than 12. Alright, so that's my other third box there. Okay. And then I'm not putting it on the exact 1/3 line, my focal points. I'm not putting my focal points on the exact 1/3 line because I honestly don't know. I don't want to say I don't know exactly what I'm doing here, but I don't actually know what the exact size is going to be, so I like to sort of like crop in a little bit. I want it more like that. There's a big debate on how detailed you should be when you start a drawing. There are people that say don't start a drawing until you don't start adding any details in drawings until you have it all blocked in. Because if you start adding details and then find something you don't like when you're blocking, then like you wasted your detail. And I see the merit in that, but more often than not when I'm drawing, I'm more likely to have the problem where I'll block out the whole thing and then I'll just keep screwing up the face and screwing up the face and screwing up the face to the point where I can't, oh, I should have these up. Screwing up the face and screwing up the face and screwing up the face to the point where I end up trashing the drawing. Because to me, since the face is the most important part, it's what people's eyes are drawn to right away. I want to make sure I get that good, and then I'll just redraw the rest of the drawing as many times as I have to. So you have to figure out what your drawing priorities are and how comfortable you are restarting which part. And likewise, if I get the face looking really good, then like that's it. That's the final for me. So I will work ridiculously hard to make the rest of the drawing work then. Alright, on one of these sketches, I always have a million different things that I'm looking at, like all the different sketches I had on other pieces of paper or laying next to me on underneath the windowsill. And then I have period pieces because, you know, obviously we don't know what Edwardian and Victorian clothes look like off the top of my head. He needs to look a little more frantic like that than that, but that's okay. And then we're blocking in. This arm's going to be covered by a board, so it's going to be a little redundant, but I want to know where it is. So it's getting drawn. I don't want these boards to overlap, so I think that board's going to go in that direction. And then the cloak's going to be over him. If you've ever read any Fighting Yank comics, you know how important the cloak is. If you've never read any Fighting Yank stories, well, that's just going to be all the more exciting if you ever check out Martian War Chronicles. Fighting Yank's going to appear in the second book, Days of Wrath and Doom. Alright, we're going to end up putting debris all over the place here too. And there's going to be bricks sticking out of things, and he's going to be partially buried. It'll just be a good time. Here we're going to get a little nuts.
Farewell and adieu to you, fair Spanish ladies. Farewell and adieu to you, ladies of Spain.